All right, it's 5:30. We'll get the December 8th, 2023 park meeting to order and started. And Ken, I'll turn it right over to you.
Okay, I'll call the Planning Development Committee to order and turn it right over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brendan Handerson, the Planning and Development Director for the park. Then I'm gonna go through the 2024 work plan. It's a little late getting to this year because we have some changes. I want to go through those, primarily spend my time talking about the changes to the next year's work plan. This year is based on the 2022 to 2026 CIP that was approved by the park board in 2021. We go back one back. You can back one. Okay. Reflects continuation of active projects with schedules that extended to 2020-55 and some a little further than that. Project highlighted in the yellow, which is as normal, are new to the work plan. Most were started in 2024 now, but some initiated over the past year. We're just catching up and letting you know that they're going on. They were added to the work plan. Last month, we brought you the quarterly status reports ahead of the work plan. That is our new format. So we showed you the quarterly starting last July. We've been making changes to both to make them more usable to the board, the staff, and to the public. I think probably going to be the 119-page work plan is something that's kind of hard to get through. So we've been diligently making some changes, but we did have a quarterly status report completed ahead of the work plan. That's why we're giving you the old work plan, the old format of the work plan. Tonight, again, I'll briefly go through the current style of the work plan and the changes that we made. The current work plan has all the bond projects listed. Some may not have started yet. Hold the design construction warranty were completed. That is highlighted in the schedule. This document is calibrated to the cash flow of $25 million per year goes into the process. That's not we can spend on bonds in a year. Some of the projects are not bonds, they're sinking fund, there are other funds provided by the board. Primarily, we're looking after the cash flow, make sure that we're on target there. Once this annual work plan is approved, we will complete the transition from the old format to the new format. Again, I'll spend some time. I can only do that. And just to put a finer point on this, the work plan is our capacity, is what we can do in a year. The bond is how much we can spend. And the cash flow is our goal for the year, which starts 25 minutes. The big changes to the work plan are going to include the this puts the same as it puts in here. But some of the big changes to the work plan are the financial reporting requirements. One of the things that causes our work plan to go to 119 pages is the fact that each bond year, bond cycle, each different pot of money has its own tab at the bottom. That corresponds to sometimes the same project 4, 5, 6 times in the work plan. So what we've done is to take all the money, all the financial reporting, working with finance, is to lump that into one number. And we're still tracking it on the back end, so we know where the funds are coming from. But what you're all going to see is what you're going to show the public. It was that $6 million, how much we have encumbered, how much we have left. That'll be so that wipes out all those tabs that we do not now need. Again, finance is tracking this on the back end, so we'll still have all that. We can report back to you all that information, but we don't need to on the quarterly status. Again, it does alleviate redundant projects and help us track our $25 million cash flow. This is to show you the plan. Again, we're also doing some reporting changes to the work plan. Again, it's only going to be broken into 3 divisions, not all those tabs. There's going to be real estate development and planning. So you'll be able to go pretty quickly through the report and see. I mean, 119 pages down to a fraction of that. Hopefully, we'll be able to track it a little bit better. Also, the project is now be sorted by district and by department. If you want to see what's going on in the park, click on a park, and you'll see the projects that are there. If you want to track it by district, you can do that as well. That's a pretty big change, and the last big change is the group projects. We might have a list of 17 trail projects instead of group. Now we're gonna have them all broken out by park and by district, so that you can know where your trails are going. And that's gonna be the same for energy, irrigation, and field conversions as well. So, we are adding a little bit to the tab for that, for the product, but it's a fraction of what we're taking out. We go to the
PowerPoint.
QSR. The last big change to the work plan is the original schedule was included in the plan like it always has been. That's when the board initiated action on it. But because that can slip so far, it's really not a good number. So now we're including a much more tighter schedule of where the project is, with a seasonal date for when it's gonna be completed, like spring of 2024, so that you all can plan with some of these openings and some of these different things that are coming in.
I'm sorry, yeah, because you're getting rid of the date that
No,
No, it's in there, it's
Okay.
a starting basis, but we're adding.
you're adding information.
Right.
and things like that. Okay.
That way you all know when you started, you had made the action to add it to the work plan, but you can track it in real time. Well, some of these things split the year. So
Otherwise, if you park it.
so we can go to this, so this is the quarterly status report. Okay, so you'll see it's streamlined now, it's clear, you can see the one number for the budget. And then it'll show you the actual committed and then the balance for the project. So it's much more up to date. It also helps our project managers, because a lot of the folks are checking back and looking at these numbers themselves, and now we have finance doing that afterwards on a quarterly basis. These will be updated quarterly, and it'll be just much more easy to track. And that's, if anybody has any questions on that, you can let me know.
Question I have in both of the two that are on the screen, total project budget, total expenditures. They're highlighted in green. Is that just because they're money related? That doesn't mean anything, right? It doesn't correspond with any of the legends.
About the header.
It's a schedule indicator. So, if it's on track and screen,
No. That one I get. Where like construction is yellow, right? That one makes sense. But if you look at the headers, total project budget, total expenditures and project balance.
I think they're all gonna be that green.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just making sure
Didn't have a meaning.
it didn't have a meaning.
The header or something, okay.
so, that show you a snapshot of the project, and again, if you scroll through it and you start to sort that, this is the spreadsheet, so you can't sort this, but. If you're sorting, you can go right to your district, right to the park, whatever you're interested in, trails. It'll be an easier way for us to track the project. And then our next steps are the action items that will come in January. We also approve this, with that. We'll also start developing the 25 work plan, and that's the new format. And our second quarter, which will be our fourth quarter of the calendar year, the second quarter of the fiscal year, will be coming in February from QSR. I hope you like the changes. I'm a little bit of an Excel geek, so I really do like the fact that we streamlined this and made it a little bit easier to follow.
Yeah, I really.
I think it is.
But we're going to receive. What changes you're describing are things we can go see online and play with and do. But we're still, we're still gonna receive the equivalent of this 112 page document. That will go into and be part of the board that will then go through, right, in these three new buckets.
Yeah, so the next quarterly status report, you'll see one in November. That's got the new format. We'll be changing this over to the new format now. After that, next week. We are already not going to quarterly status reports, which you're not here now, but you can look at it.
So if we have any questions, we can contact
Yeah,
you.
we'll look into it. If you have any questions or something, then you'd like to. Okay.
Thanks, Brandon. Okay.
Faisal's here.
okay.
Before we get started on this one, did I see Faisal? All right. Let's do this. All right, good evening. Welcome. My name is Chairman Kyle Stone, and I call the December 13th, 2023 Park Authority Board Meeting to order. Virginia law authorizes the remote participation of board members, provided that a policy exists to ensure that remote participation is consistently administered. This board has approved policy 111. Any such remote attendance must be approved by the board as long as a physical quorum of the board is actually present. Voice of the remote participant is able to be heard by everyone in the room, and the remote participation comports with the policy. The first step of this is verification that the remote participant's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for the meeting room, and confirmation of the location. We've got one member participating remotely tonight. And that's Faisal Khan. Mr. Khan, are you connected to this meeting remotely?
Yes, and I'm at my residence in Providence.
Great, thank you very much. I move that Mr. Khan's voice may be adequately heard in this location.
I second the motion.
Any discussion around that? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Step 2 is verification that the remote participant's physical absence comports with the policy. My motion would be pursuant to the Park Authority's policy 111 for remote participation in public meetings. I move that Mr. Faisal Khan be permitted to participate remotely in this meeting because it comports with the policy we adopted, and a physical quorum is present here at the Park Authority Boardroom, 9th floor, Heritage Building.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
That motion, any opposed? That motion carries. All right, Ken, it's back to you.
Okay, item number 2. Lake Accotink Task Force update.
Great.
Who gets this?
So I'll kick it off.
Okay.
Thank you. Tonight we want to give you an update on the Lake Accotink Task Force and their findings. They actually just met with the BOS Environmental Committee on the 12th. And so we are bringing that to you. We've got Brendan, Laura, Paul, also Adam and Alex are here as well. They all kind of did their duty and sat through, as Kyle did, sat through all those meetings that they had over the last 6 months or 8 months. So Brendan and Laura, please.
Maybe the task force, we just completed their work and
Let's-
their findings and that we can the county board on yesterday. So I just want to go through quickly. Kyle, if you have anything to add?
Will do.
The task force determined that the report.
Next slide.
They need to the next.
Thank you. This way.
All right, so the board established a task force in May to look at the findings of the Public Works and WSP Limatex, not Limatex, I'm sorry. Cadis, thank you, I'll get to that. So this is his background. The report was to conduct the task force was to conduct a review and develop findings of the previous studies formed by Cadis WSSI on dredging of the lake. And the fact that we're not going to do dredging of the lake. Identify relevant information needed and questions that should be addressed by the board. To study and manage the wetlands option or hybrid options for managing the wetlands with smaller open water feature. The findings should consider the impacts of the environment, surrounding community, recreational use of the park, and finance, including ongoing maintenance. The report finding summary. The task force determined that the report should focus on 3 areas. 3 subcommittees were formed to further develop the report section. The 3 areas were the value of Lake Accotink to the park and to the county. Impacts of the issue with staff recommendations for not dredge, the impact of that, and options to consider other than traditional full dredge. So they had 3 subcommittees that worked on these reports, and they were combined for the executive summary at the end of the report. The report finding summaries. This is from the task force and the 3 different committees. That park facility needed attention. That the larger dredging issue stalled the master plan process. Task force also found that conditions in the watershed continue to change and the lake continues to fill with sediment. That's something that I think you can all agree on there. We reviewed the findings as a team. Everybody that maybe mentioned and worked with them with well, for the deck. And our findings there were we. Lake Acton is not only the Fairfax County Collective Lake Park that serves the entire county. While serving the immediate community, one of the contentions was that it was the acceptable part that catered to the whole community and other lake parks. Of course, we don't agree with that.
I'm sorry, what don't you agree with?
The task force claim was that Lake Akating was the only accessible to everyone lakefront park.
Oh, I see, okay, so
That was one of the, if you went back.
we
to
don't agree with the
slides.
task, this is the task force findings and we, Park Authority, don't agree with that.
Yeah, what we're looking at right now is our review of the findings. The previous two slides were the main 5 findings of the task force.
And right now, we're not in a position to say we're agreeing or we're just listening to what the task force has to say. There's probably a lot of things.
What we were really charged with was not necessarily a critique of the findings, but really to just ensure that there was clarity and consistency with what was being shared as well as
Truth finding.
truthful.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, as somebody who has sat through many very large community meetings, the community seemed very involved in trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
That seems to, I mean, they have been at the table,
Yes.
so. Okay.
And Laura, you can jump into if you like.
Yeah, the funding assumes that the other park features such as wetlands or lesser value to the community than the lake. That Burke Lake and Lake Fairfax are now between a high degree of diverse park community. Again, as far as you mentioned, we're trying not necessarily fact check, but point out things that were incorrect for you all to see. Staff does not agree with the master plan. This is the next point. The master plan should not be resumed immediately. Technical studies should be completed prior to restarting any master plan process. And funding must be found as well. This is something that we adamantly think that if we're going to do, we need to do the background work before we start a master plan. Make sure that we have everything that we need to know, and also needs to be funded. Just to tell us to do it, it's pretty difficult to do. And funding for the amenities or any changes that we can make as well. That's something that is very important. We just don't want to put another master plan on ourselves, especially when it's contingent in ongoing existence. And also the last part of this is really the dam came up as a question towards the end of this. And we've been obviously working on this dam for a long time. That's kind of what we're supposed to do with due diligence on our projects. So we're going to spend some time talking about that as well. And we not necessarily disagreed with the fact that it came up, but the fact that it came up on a contract. That all of a sudden the dam is going to fail and here's the terrible. So, and with that, I'm going to pass this on to Paul.
One thing to just piggyback on that real quick is that any of the options, including the hybrid options that were being,
So that's the laptop that does, you have to point at that laptop. Sorry.
technology is great until I figure out how to use it. But what I was gonna say is that, on
There you
the,
go.
we wanted to make sure that with whatever option was being considered, that the ongoing maintenance and management of the dam needed to be taken into consideration.
All right, so a little background on the dam, and I'm Paul Showery, with the reporting of it, with the Planning and Development Division.
Paul's last meeting with us.
Oh, my.
So, the dam, as you may be aware, was constructed in current configuration in the early 1940s and was intended for water supply for mountain water. So it was never intended to be a flood control structure. And the flood control structures would tend to have more storage capacity above the lake level. So basically, Akating would close in, close out. And then we were in getting full 6-year certification from the state until in 2014, based on all the increased runoff that we see with more intense storms, the state changed their rainfall criteria. It was a map thing where all the rainfall intensities were increased. So that raised the bar on what the dam would need to pass in terms of a hypothetical major, super storm event. And complicated, but they got this theoretical maximum storm. And so the dam currently doesn't pass that storm event through. So from that time forward, about 2014, we started getting additional certifications, which are only good for 2 years. And staff looked at a number of options with partnering with Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. And what was settled on was an option to pursue lowering the hazard class of the dam. So currently it's rated as high hazard. And with Public Works' computations that was supporting a reduction to what's called significant hazard. So if that was accepted by the state, then we wouldn't have to perform any improvements to the dam, keep it in its current location and configuration. So at this point, we're still working with the state on that, and we had a meeting in November 2nd with DCR. And they were basically asking if we still want to proceed with this analysis. So what they would actually do is consult with 2 other firms that would evaluate our request to lower the hazard class. Originally, Corps of Engineers was considered for that, but they weren't able to work that out. So they're looking at other options now. But the state was asking us if we wanted to do it because we're aware of the committee's effort and some of the uncertainty about what the dam configuration will be after the board of supervisors weighs in on all this. So we said, go ahead and continue it because whatever happens in the interim, you know, we still need to be able to get our certification. It would be better to get a 6-year certification and be able to fully pass this storm. So we're trying to get all this stuff out of the plan, but there you see a reference to what's called 0.9 PMP. That's that super storm event. Actually, the PMP would be that. And so we would have to pass 0.9 of that. But in any event, so that's where that stands. We're trying to lower from high hazard to low hazard, or rather significant hazard. So that's the change. And then this raises some issues for next steps with the dam. Really, it's dependent on what disposition of the dam will be as to what kind of study you would do on the existing dam. So if the state were to determine that, no, we think the hazard class should be high hazard, and we had to look at solutions there past that mega storm, we really would still have to wait until it's known what is going to become of the dam, whether
Or the lake.
in
Yeah.
the lake. So some of the options on the table could be to leave the dam in its current location, maybe modify it, or there's this offline lake concept of modifying the dam so that you only were retained with some of the tributaries that come in there, but getting it out of the main acting stream flow. So anyway, the main point is, until we know what's going to happen there, we can't really pursue any further design if the state says, no, it's going to remain high hazard. But it is important to note, if we had to do some work on the dam to bring it up to passing the major storm event, it's probably on the magnitude of a $10 to $15 million project when you consider the design study that would go with that, and then the design itself, and then construction. So it's a major project. So it's like and there have been some questions you're aware from the committee about maintenance. So just to touch on how that's working now. Currently, there is operating funding in our budget to do routine maintenance. So that's things like mowing, minor erosion repairs, grass overseeding and the planting and things like that. But currently, we don't have any funding for non-routine type maintenance. So if you have cracks in the concrete or debris on the dam or the spillway and removal of that, and other types of issues that come up with just the upkeep of a dam, that's where we don't have anything dedicated funding, so we've had to go utilize other project funding for that. And then, in the same way, there's no dedicated funding for the required professional engineering inspections that are typically every 2 years. And then you need professional engineering certification to develop the operation and maintenance applications and the recertification process. So, again, we tend to just look for funding, and we've been able to find that here and there as we walk through this, but there really is no dedicated funding source for that. So, that would help the program to get that funding. As far as life cycle, that came up in some of the Limnotech comments with the committee. They were referring to the life cycle of the facility being toward the end of its service life. So any facility like this, if you continue to do maintenance on it, you can extend that service life. But I think they were just raising the concern that it is getting old, so you gotta start to weigh how much you're gonna put into it. Kind of like if you got 180,000 miles on your car, you gotta consider, are you gonna keep throwing money into it, or are you gonna just give it in the car? I wasn't at that meeting, but that's where the concern that folks had about.
And so I'll take the next steps. So the BOS now has the report. It's a pretty long report with a lot of appendices. They're going to have to go through that report and the findings. And they'll have to contemplate whether additional studies are needed, how and when, developing a smaller lake option, which was one of the top options that the task force gave. A cost associated with dredging or designing that. There's questions around that. Using broader community engagement, maybe an additional survey, incorporating the dam into those discussions, and financing. What are the next steps if they decide to go forward with something? How would they finance it? So, and I'll turn it over to Kyle if he'd like to comment on the task force.
Well, first I'll ask, I don't expect everyone to read it, but just so everyone has it, can you circulate the
Report.
report? It's
Okay.
like 200 and something odd pages.
Yep.
You can read the executive summary
There we
and
go.
get most of it. I mean, nothing especially unique about the task force in terms of how those meetings operated. Every one of us has been to a public meeting. I think we have a sense of how those went. The one thing I'll say is yesterday was the environmental committee was when the task force officially kind of presented its report and findings to the board. They were able to make a presentation. They had, I don't know, 20-30 minutes or so. There wasn't much in the way of questions that came from the board of supervisors yesterday, so it's hard to get a sense of what they might be thinking at this point. They mostly just took the information in, asked a couple clarifying questions. Nobody made any grand statements one way or the other, except your appointee.
I don't appoint anybody to the board of supervisors.
Pointer. Was the only one that kind of at that meeting indicated clear support for moving forward with some kind of some kind of dredge option. Everybody else was a little more guarded, so we'll see where that goes, but it's going to have to come up again at the board. 2 members who were there yesterday are not going to be there come January 1. So 2 new board members are going to have to get kind of updated and briefed on all of this. So I'm not sure that's going to move super quickly, but who knows? We'll see.
Any other questions?
I guess in the engineering part of this is anything that adds water behind the dam impacts the serviceability of the dam. Because the higher the water volume behind it, the more pressure you're going to build behind it. So as it fills and silts in, less water, less problem with the dam, but sooner or later, the dam's going to have to be replaced if we do decide to actually keep water in the lake.
So I don't know that the storage is, so with the silt in there, I don't know that any less maintenance on the dam.
No, I'm talking about stress, not maintenance.
So think of it as, I'm just gonna jump in just to layman, nice, that's the word. So think of the sediment that's in there, the hazard of the dam is not based on low flow conditions. Dams don't breach when just sitting around doing nothing. They breach during a storm. So really you're talking about the capacity from the top of the water to the top that the dam can hold. And that's the hazard. So even if it's all full, if it's still in a position to impound water, then as the water's coming up during a Hurricane Agnes or a hurricane, whatever it is, the water level's coming up, if the capacity that the dam can hold can breach, that's the hazard that they're talking
When
about.
you say breach, you're talking about water going over, not
Through.
necessarily the.
Through.
Okay, because that's
Dam
not
rails.
the way I interpret what you said
Sorry.
was it rises and goes over.
No, it shouldn't
versus
ever
the
go
water
over. It should
pressure
it should hit
goes
emergency
through.
spillway. I mean, if it goes over, then we got
Right.
bigger problems,
Right.
fish to fry.
Which is why I was.
But it's a matter of if the dam breaches, meaning through the dam,
Right.
breaches is what's the hazard level. So you could have a wetland and then remove the dam feature, because you don't have to impound water for a wetland. You can remove the dam and still have a wetland, and then that has, or breach the dam or something and have it engineering wise. But if there still is something that impounds water that's in the flow of the stream, that's how they're going to determine the hazard level.
Everybody thinks of the dam as just being the concrete spillway, but the whole dam is earthen.
Yes.
Really, most folks don't even notice that, but so it's any part of that could stay on.
But Ron is right, that the more sediment that is in the lake and the less water that is in the lake, the less pressure that's on the dam and the less the dam is stressed.
But that but what I don't know, just from a pure engineering standpoint, is
Really, yeah.
less water would theoretically be less pressure, except
right.
it's also pressure over a smaller area. So that top however many feet is getting all the pressure. And so I mean, from an engineering standpoint, I don't know, you'd have to
That's
stress
like,
the whole
when
thing.
you have your event, what you've got is less space for that water to go into,
Yes,
because the sediment has pushed the water level up.
Concentrate.
And the top of the dam becomes the critical thing instead of,
Well, what the state hazard class is based on is this probable maximum flood, it's theoretical.
Yeah.
Super event. So at that point, it's like, the sediment doesn't really matter when you're looking at
Yeah.
the major event, and that's what the hazard class is based on, failure event.
you may want to go her first.
Quick question, you had a slide in here with the park authority's comments or, I won't say disagreements, but was that information incorporated into the task finding report?
Yeah.
Was it?
Well, the one bullet, that was incorporated in there was related to that the dam needed to be taken into consideration for any option. That was something that came directly.
So it wasn't, okay, but then when things were presented to the board, did they hear what we had to say? No. Okay.
No, but they understand that it's one perspective.
Okay,
So we did have some comments that went back about that they said there was only one lake that was, accessible. We countered that as well. So we actually had pages and pages, where's John? Or 2 pages and pages of clarifications that
Okay.
they tried to clarify some things in their reports, but there's some things they just would not clarify differently.
They being.
Task force. Yeah,
Because ultimately it's their report.
we tried to provide clarifications.
Right, couple questions. First. This thing's been kicking around for a very long time. And there's even some words said tonight that I just want to be mindful and understand. Who's in charge? I mean, there was a discussion about, something that we might have to as a park authority board. At one point, it became pretty clear that while we were maybe working through master plans and meeting with the community, doing all this stuff years ago, this is gonna be super expensive. it's gonna have massive impact and it's going across the street for them to figure out how willing they, I mean, because it was like $500 million to do this, the creek stuff and this, that, and it was all this money.
Yep.
So right now, as things are being evaluated and decisions are being made, who's actually in charge of making that decision?
The board, okay,
You know,
so it's not me. So I think that at this point in time, the Board of Supervisors is determining, and correct me if I'm, is determining whether or not, when we made that decision, when the board made that decision, however long ago, to not move forward, we couldn't afford it, and we're saying no. It was taken up by and moved over to DPWS, where it lives right now. Everything that's in the lake proper, to dredge, to not dredge, that's being run by DPWS. So the board is making the decision as to whether to finance whatever decision, the Board of Supervisors, because it's not out of ours, whether to finance whatever it is within the boundary of the lake. Some of the recommendation, anything that's outside the boundary of the lake would, I guess, be a recommendation that is suggested to us. But this task force to talk about, they can't, you know, this, I don't want to sound like a
Well,
trigger,
the-
make us, you know, but it would come back to us for anything else.
All the amenity, for lack of a better way to put it, the amenity, all the other stuff. But to lake or not to lake, what
Dredge
kind
or
of
not to
lake,
dredge, right?
what to do with the creeks, that's all gonna sit with them to make the determination, them to
As
figure out
of
the
this
funding.
moment, nothing has changed in that kind of decision matrix. It was like it was yesterday.
Okay,
Okay, well, then,
well, wait,
Oh,
I
you
had,
got one?
well, I had a
He's
couple-
not done with his.
I had a couple more questions, if that's all right. So second, in here, you talked about funding before master plan. I don't understand how you can do I don't understand how you can fund something that you don't know what you want to do. Don't you by necessity have to involve the community, figure out what you want to do and say, here's what we want to do, and to fund it will cost this, now where's the funding come from?
So you can do it two ways. So it's the approval or the earmarking of any pot of money. But we're not, what we're not doing, we're trying to avoid doing is making so this whole endeavor, talking about, so this community's been waiting for this thing. The worst thing for this community is to come here, and we're gonna start a master plan, knowing that we can't fund anything in the master plan till 2040. Which is what our situation right now, especially with the constraints that we have in our CIP, and quite frankly, the amount of money that's going 1.5 miles away in the next CIP cycle to Audrey Moore. What we want to do is say, okay, there's going to be a funding source for elements of this master plan outside of our CIP preferably. And then we would start the master plan, but without any kind of funding associated with any implementation, we can't start a master plan for a community that's not going to be there when we build the thing 20 years later. It's a false promise
Yeah,
of,
but doesn't that mean that every master plan we've done and the way we've done it to date, we've done wrong?
yes,
So,
not everyone, but a lot of them.
Well,
Yes.
I would think the one basic question is there gonna be a lake there or not would be pretty relevant.
yeah,
to a
you can't.
master
Exactly.
Yeah,
So clearly.
You can't have a marina.
have to wait till-
I think if people,
Yeah, no,
You have to wait till after the
I
fact.
totally,
people are using the word master plan a little bit in different ways. I think that some people talking about a master plan are talking about the decision of lake, small lake, big lake, wetland. We don't need a
Okay.
funding thing for that part. I'm talking about the whole rest of the stuff. The carousel, the boat launch, you know, where the playground's gonna go, all of those, so it could be master plan light. I mean, it's gonna be multiple stages of figuring this out.
okay, and I think you alluded to it in my final question, which was the way this is set up right now in this weird board of supervisors picked it up, and because there was no way, I mean, right, I mean, I remember sitting in the meeting and it was like 20 years of our storm restoration or stream restoration money had to be spent on this one project in like less than like a year or something to make it work or whatever it was. Is their financial commitment limited to the idea of to have a lake or not a lake, and or do they recognize that that decision has a major impact on what happens at that park and therefore potentially provide funding to support whatever their decision is for what we should do with this piece of property in this park.
When, are you talking about just the lake or the
I'm
rest?
talking about if there's going to be a lake, is there an acknowledgement that they might need to step up with funding for a marina to support said lake? Because we may not have the money, given all the other stuff going on, to build a marina for such lake or to have boats
That
for
is the,
such.
that is my only concern through this whole process. I've been, to everybody who's listening, you know, we can go out of this entire exercise with the dredge lake, which minus the mud flats will look exactly the way it does now, minus the mud, a couple of mud flats. And still have aging equipment, no marine, because we still don't have the money to put into the stuff that they're talking about at the same time as this. So I really think as much as we can be saying it, that it needs to be tied in together so that you get two things that are the same, you know, the same
Especially
age, and
things
the
that are
community's
connected to
getting,
the water.
yeah, and if there's no lake, then the master plan, you know, elements that we put in, because the community's gonna want something, is gonna be far less expensive than the lake option. So I just want as
And
much.
far less costly to
Kyle will
do
talk, as
upkeep.
that's my repeating over and over and over and over again.
Jim, you have the last.
Yeah, I'd like to tag on to what Paul was saying, actually. And his reference to putting money into an automobile that's got, you know, 150, 200,000 miles on it. I happen to have an automobile that's got 235,000 miles on it. And the question is, if I were not to have that anymore, could I replace it? In other words, if I fill this area, is there anything that I can buy on the market to replace a lake feature in the county? And I think that's a real consideration that needs to be taken into account. You may not like the analogy, but if we really want to continue having the benefit of a lake in this area of the county, then abandoning that. And I fully recognize that we can't pay for it, but abandoning that, I think is a real shame. I'd keep the old car myself.
And I think that their point when they were talking about it is, it's sort of like me, and correct me screaming from the rooftops about the point that Mike made about the, you know, we have got to look at it holistically, and we don't want to, is the same thing as we want to make sure that coming out of it, when you're talking about a potential, let's $200 to $300 million endeavor, a $10 to $15 million dam is not that much. Absent of that, that is a great deal of money for us to do. So we're trying to make sure that in this conversation, am I correct? In this conversation, we are continuing to say, remember, there's the marina and the other things and a dam. So we want to have a lake, we want to dredge, we don't want to dredge it. We don't want to put in, I don't know cars. We don't want to put a new seat cover or whatever, and we didn't do the engine, right? If we're going to get in there, we need to dredge it and fix the dam. So when everybody walks away, we know we're not gonna have dam problems, and we're gonna have a fully dredged out lake. So I don't think that we're saying we don't do it. We just need to, there's a $15 million thing that's on there that's almost at the end of the life stage. We're gonna go in and do cosmetic stuff. We also need to take care of the
The
engine.
one other consideration that we should really try to make sure is on the table is the ongoing maintenance costs.
Yes.
Because there's gonna be whatever, if assuming there's a lake feature.
Yep.
Yep.
There's gonna be a lot of cost in dredging and stuff. And there was talk of, oh, we should do it every 2 years instead of every 10 and blah, blah, blah. Whatever that is, there needs to be an acknowledgement from across the street, because that will become a constant budget issue for us.
Yep.
that we need to figure out.
Okay, it's safe to say there's more to come.
Yeah.
Um,
I would
200
expect
pages, apparently.
Yeah,
It's just the
In your
first step.
boxes tomorrow.
there'll be a test. Want to thank Brendan, Laura, Paul, Amy. Thank you very much. If there's nothing else for this committee, it's hereby adjourned.
See you again.
Me again. That last committee was out of control. Okay, call the budget committee to order. And turn it over to, you're it, huh? Okay.
Tag.
Josh Coleman here to.
Josh.
Approval of the adjustments to the published fee schedule for 2024. Then to a budget, but, this is the. This is the last meetings of the board here in terms of the approval. You can see again, kind of the review calendar that we've gone through. We just had the 30-day public comment period close at the end of November, which included that virtual public comment meeting. Really a recap here of the public comment feedback that we received. We have 14 comments in total, including the people who attended the virtual meeting as well as written submissions. You can see at the top there, the thing we heard the most was really advocacy for a more equitable park authority system, and recognition of a need for additional general fund support, and opposition to our current fee-based structure. I'll say that the comments and feedback that we've gotten, acknowledge the position that we're in and understand the need for us to raise these fees. This relates again to kind of our overall fee structure. We'll be coming back in the January timeframe with the equity consultants report and findings that are really addressing fee-based structure overall and recommendations for where we move forward. So more to come on that area altogether. You can see a couple of the other comments. The next category was really opposition from a golf standpoint and some requests for senior rates specific to golf courses. And just as a reminder, and I know we show this slide regularly as we go through these presentations, but all the fees that we're talking about again relate directly to the revenue and operating fund. It's about 60% of our overall agency budget. And we're required obviously to recover all the costs associated with that fund. We spent a lot of times in the previous meetings talking about the impact of MRA and CPI on our expenses and the need to continue to raise fees to make sure we're continuing to cover our financial obligations. With that said, the action here tonight, the recommendation to approve the proposed fee adjustments as advertised. We would take that approval and implement the fees starting January 1st. Happy to take any questions.
Typically, we get very few comments on, but this is an all-time low, I think.
Pretty low. Yeah, last 2 or 3 years, pretty low.
It's not a bad thing.
No, that's not a bad thing.
I will say that, although, as Josh could attest to, my favorite thing about this job is raising fees. It makes his job super easy. I don't give him any problem. I just did want to let everybody know that this will be the last time that you see Josh doing the fee raising part. I know he's decided to leave us for Cindy's position. So he's gonna leave us and then come back around and he's gonna be the new Cindy Walsh. So this is your last one. This is your last in this. You come back in January, you poof in January and become a nicer person, right? Is that what it is? Okay.
We'll still recognize.
I'm
you.
more gray hair.
Yes.
I actually have a question because for that last item, that last comment about the 25 visit fast pass. There's an expiration date on it so that it only operates for 1 year. And if you haven't used them all up, they go away. I'm wondering why that would be.
It's currently a 2-year expiration. Recommendation is to go down for 1 year. There's been an expiration associated with it for a long time. I believe that came in as part of a financial finding even from years ago of needing to have an expiration date associated with passes and not let it carry on forever. So it's consistent with how we typically set an expiration for a visit-based pass. We've looked at lowering the year to encourage usage and further distinguish it from letting those things sit out there. The goal of offering that pass is for people to use the facility at least twice a month, which is what 1 year expiration.
We can talk about it next time. We'll bring it up next time we talk
Doesn't-
about these kinds of passes. As a general item, I'd like to have a broader conversation about that. I'm not gonna slow this down, but. I don't see any reason why we could. Give people an extended period of time to use these passes, because they're either gonna use them or they're not gonna use them. Shortening the time frame just forces them to do something they're not planning to do, which in turn might make them not buy them in the first place.
I think, you know, I was gonna say, we have a very generous and relaxed understanding policy. If people are unable to use them for whatever reason in terms of our, you know, dealings with refund requests or issues in terms of I was unable to use that pass. But I'd also say it's an area that we really try to put up front. These are the different options of memberships that we have. We've got our general admission-based purchases for people who are coming in a little more sporadically and don't want to commit to as well as these fixed visit passes to again give a degree of flexibility at a discounted rate beyond committing to one of our membership or traditional membership options like a year-long membership or I'm happy to.
Well,
take
what's the fiscal impact of going from 2 years to 1 year?
Uh,
This is to make money. So what's the fiscal impact? Wait, what money are we now making? By going from 2 years to 1 year?
Because they've already paid, so.
So, I'm sorry, let me question. Anyone who purchased already is sticking at their 2 years. We do not make retroactive changes to that.
You can't change the existing contract of what they bought. I get it.
They bought that.
But-
on our-
But I'm saying that this is being done to raise money. What's the fiscal impact of going from 2 years to 1 year?
I don't have the exact number of the discount fast pass value. We did evaluate that. That was based more on the fee increase than the value of.
No, but
decreasing it.
I think that's unknown because we don't know how many people would have not used all 25 in 1 year and then would come back the next year and buy another one. So it's an unknown number at this point. I think we could project based on the numbers that are purchased every year, if the same number of people purchase the next year, and I think that's the number we could come back with.
So there's
also-
no way to know. I'm sorry.
That's
ahead.
okay.
No.
I also think, and Tanya just brought up a great point, is there's an accounting mechanism with this, the liability that we have on the books. And it's been noted with the auditors that this is an issue.
It's like with the
I mean,
subscription.
I think, yes, I think this is industry standard. Folks don't, if you go to a gym, if you get a pass like this, it doesn't last forever.
Right.
And I think the typical industry standard is the 1 year. And so we're trying to align with that.
Okay, thank you, Josh.
Ken, before you go, I got
Oh, I'm
two quick
sorry.
things.
Apologize.
All good. In the board package piece of this, there's talk about the water mine being down in terms of attendance and reservations, and then when we go into the what your proposed fee structure is, one of the justifications is fees, to raise the fees is an increased demand at both to the park itself and the reservation. So just, can you help me? Yeah.
So with that, without getting too detailed on the fun of having fiscal year and splitting the summers, which the water mine constantly deals with. FY 23, which we would have referenced, is down from FY 22. The water mine had a shutdown in the August-September timeframe. 2022, we lost about 8 or 9 operating days in that timeframe, and then weather at the beginning of this current season was an impact. So we had fewer operating days in FY 23. What we've seen on a day-to-day basis, attendance and demand is up over previous years. And that played out at the beginning of this FY 24 fiscal year. We've seen revenue and attendance up. So it's really some of the timing elements, bad luck with operating days at the back end of the previous season and the front end of this season.
Okay. Only other thing, can you tell me where we start the senior discounts, at what age? And I'll just make a note for the board. Federal Reserve, this is a survey that came out in October, notes the cohort of ages 65 to 74 is the wealthiest in the United States.
Yep.
So just leave that, Ken, turn it back to you.
I don't know if I agree with that.
He's talking about everybody else, Ken.
Is there a consensus to move this forward? Josh, thank you.
Woodward, you're up. Oh, I thought you did.
You adjourn?
Thought I did, but I will do it
No,
again.
no, you don't.
We're hereby adjourned.
Second time.
Anyway, I'd like to call the Park Operations Committee to order and turn it right over.
Before Kim starts, just real quick, I just want to remind everybody that these were, what she's gonna bring are the massive brooks that we discussed last board, the kind of grandfather in group. So I just want to give her the.
Is there one more or is this all of them?
I think
Just three.
No, no.
Really
I'm
don't-
saying-
More in the pipeline.
Yeah,
there was
just three.
So this is it.
I thought there were 5, but
Good evening, everyone. Kim Eckert, Division Director of Park Operations. So tonight we have 3 master brook grant requests for your consideration. Staff have reviewed all 3 projects and determined that they meet the current eligibility criteria for a master brook grant. First, I bring to you the master brook grant request from the Cricket Association of Fairfax County. The proposed project calls for the replacement of the cricket pitch at Lake Fairfax Park in the Hunter Mill District. In 1997, Field 8 at Lake Fairfax Park was developed into the first cricket field in Fairfax County. Growth in the sport of cricket and the introduction of Major League Cricket in the U.S. have given rise to a demand for cricket facilities that meet international standards. Lake Fairfax Field 8 is one of the few fields in the Northern Virginia region large enough to meet these standards. Today, it is one of the most heavily used cricket fields in the county, hosting youth, adult, and national tournaments throughout the spring, summer, and fall. The existing pitch suffers from poor drainage and is beyond repair. The Cricket Association of Fairfax County therefore desires to replace the pitch with a new pitch consisting of a concrete base and artificial turf. Over the past year, the Cricket Association of Fairfax County has worked closely with the staff to compile specifications for the pitch, scope the proposed project, and obtain cost estimates. The proposed project is located at Field 8 next to the multi-purpose fields at Lake Fairfax. This slide just illustrates that it aligns with our master plan. This shows the current condition of the existing cricket pitch, so it's in pretty poor condition. The total project cost is $30,650. Funding will be an equal match of $15,325 from the Cricket Association of Fairfax and the Master Brook Grant, if approved. Staff from the Park Management Branch will manage the project. Maintenance costs will be managed through operational funding that already addresses maintenance of the existing cricket. The fiscal impact of this grant, if approved, will be $15,325 from the 2020 park bond funding. The resulting balance in funding set aside for the Master Brook Grant Program will be $657,000 and change. Any questions?
Yeah, I had, since it's gonna be turf over concrete, actually, I was gonna try to get Faisal to come in on this one because I'm not sure that's the international standard. I mean,
It is.
it is.
Oh,
It
sorry,
is the state.
except it.
If I was originally looking at it and it said 1, that was one of the other proposals was a
It
grass.
actually says in here, in their presentation.
Yeah.
That the con of option 1, which is what we're looking at, does not meet the standard for international and
Right.
first-class matches.
Okay, yeah, because you need more pitches. It's too much.
All
use.
right, Linwood, if I may.
Yeah.
Faisal, that's it.
All right, so yeah, it's definitely not international standards in a way that the international games are played, and it's not supposed to be. So the internationally they play on natural clay, and that has to be curated and all that, and that's no way possible financially and otherwise. So what this is a this is a localized version of that anywhere that's cricket being played, because of the affordability and maintenance and all that of that international standard, that's just not viable to do it on a league level or a club level cricket. So the next best option is to just put a concrete and put artificial turf on that, and get over that because it's less maintenance and less curating, because you need a full-time curator to cure the pitches which are used in the international environment or the standards that you're talking about. That you need a whole crew of people, and I don't think we have the right soil for that here anyways. So, but short of that, on a club level cricket or a, well, you can say that lower level cricket, this is the standard these days where people just put a slab of concrete and then put a carpet over it, and then when the carpet is worn out, they just replace the carpet and get over that. And that's what we've been doing at Oakmar and Sully as well.
So this was
I hope
not,
that-
so this was not the one that needed the $5,000 annual maintenance. That was the other one.
That's option 2, according to what's here. That's option
Yeah, I
2. Not this
just look at
Not this
option,
one.
but just answering a basic question here, that the following the international standard is irrelevant here and sort of redundant, because I don't think we need that here anyways. I mean, it's totally fine that this is how it's normally done. I've personally played here last season as well, and I need to look at it that what exactly is the problem with this, but replacing the surface itself, it's a pretty standard thing that happens after a while when the pitch is worn out and you just need to basically redo the carpet and all that, unless the concrete is damaged. But that's pretty straightforward thing in that, but unless there's a specific request of that, which my apology that I didn't get a chance to look at it, and I will as soon as I can, and then I can provide my comment on that. But so far on the surface of it, this is what it takes. And to answer that question, that is that something appropriate that it's needed? The answer is yes, and that's how it's done.
I would also just point out that the overwhelming majority of the soccer fields in Fairfax County don't meet FIFA standards.
Yeah, no, I'm not worried about that so much as that is serviceable for a full year.
Yeah.
With the concrete and the
Right.
turf, it'll be fine.
Yeah, because it was the option 2 that it actually had underneath it as the con, the annual maintenance cost was the $5,000.
Yeah, and maintenance on this
Is nothing.
a couple $100.
Yeah, if that.
So I think the once the concrete is there, the possible maintenance there is whenever the carpet is damaged, basically. Normally, for example, in all the local events, I see that the cleats are forbidden. All right. So, and that is one major cause when somebody just violates the rule and walks on the thing with the cleat, or is there any physical damage happened to the rug? Otherwise, these carpets, with our experience at our own fields as well, that they don't wear out that fast, as long as you have the right quality. So I mean, other than just marking the thing, I don't even see that what the maintenance is for unless there is a physical damage to the thing. Because that's the whole purpose of putting the turf, this artificial turf on concrete, that there's going to be no maintenance versus going to the traditional route.
Can I come in here? This is Raj. I'm representing the Cricket Association of Fairfax.
No.
Yeah, so Mr. Khan is absolutely
No,
right.
sir. We don't accept, this isn't a public comment period.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Thank you, Faisal. Anybody else have any questions or comments on this one?
I support moving this forward.
Consensus to move it forward?
Yes.
Thank
At
you,
this
Kim.
time, I'd like to, Karen Devorah, to present the Comcast building.
I'm Karen DeVore, and as the FCPA project manager who would be overseeing this project if approved, I'm here tonight to present the Master Book Grant request from the Friends of Thomas A. Mulligan. During his lifetime, Thomas A. Mulligan invested energy and passion into the sport of basketball in his local community. The Friends of Thomas A. Malkin is a group formed in his memory, and it consists of his 3 sons, other family members, and friends. And they are requesting a Master Brook grant to help fund a project to complete the life cycle renovation of the existing basketball court at McLean Central Park in the Drainsville district. The project location seen here is the existing basketball court, which is at McLean Central Park, and it resides behind the Bell and Madison Library, and it's across from the McLean Community Center. There's also a small parking lot that serves both the basketball court as well as the tennis courts, which are about due north from the basketball court. The existing court conditions. This existing basketball court was last professionally repaired in 2004. That repair included some new goals, the sealing of the existing asphalt surface, a little bit of color coding and lining. The current prescribed repair type is a renovation level of repair. And this repair level was determined by the existing court condition. And it called for replacement of the 2 basketball goals, a crack filling system, a stone dust, and overlay with asphalt technique, resurfacer, color coding, and lining. Given the life cycle benchmark at 10 years for athletic courts, the first end of life for this court was 2014. Due to an ongoing backlog of athletic court renovations countywide, funding for this court to undergo a renovation type is not available anytime soon with our current budget allocation. Project budget and funding, the total project cost is $65,176.50. Project funding will come from $45,176.50 in the community donations raised by the Friends of Thomas A. Malkin, combined with the $20,000 Master Brook grant if approved. Staff from Park Operations Division will manage the project. Maintenance costs will be managed through the operational funding that already addresses maintenance of the existing basketball court. The fiscal impact of this grant, if approved, will be $20,000 from the 2020 Park Fund funding. The resulting balance in funding set aside for the National Protection Fund grant program will be $637,060. Are there any questions?
Questions, anybody? Consensus to move it forward?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You have to make them pay for it.
But let's take us up this time, present the map,
Come on. These are the things we're supposed to be doing. It's supposed to be energy.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present a grant request from the Spirit Open Equestrian Program. As the Fairfax County Park Authority project manager, who will be overseeing this capital project, given back you approve it. Spirit is a nonprofit organization offering therapeutic riding, horsemanship, equine assisted learning for special needs individuals, and have been performing these services for more than 15 years. The Master Brook grant request from Spirit Open Equestrian Program, if approved, will help fund the project to install service at horse stalls and administrative areas that Spirit occupies. Site is located within Bryant Dam Park and is part of the Hunter Mill District. Seen here is an aerial view of Bryant Dam Park. The project area is located behind the mechanical riding facility within Bryant Dam Park. The site leased by Spirit from the project area is circled in yellow. Spirit has been using solar panels and batteries to provide some level of power to the site. No current commercial energy sources are available, and it's quite a distance from existing infrastructure. The current solar system has proven not to be a viable long-term option due to increasing power needs by Spirit combined with battery charging requirements, particularly in winter months, and conversely incapable of providing pulling for expensive horses in the summer months. Spirit's leased area includes 4 horse barns, which contain 14 horse stalls, 3 sheds, which serve as feed room, tool shed, and equipment storage, and an administrative office. The proposed project calls for extending power from the existing cellular tower located behind the indoor riding arenas, following the roadway down to Spirit's location. The track of the power line extension to Spirit is shown in red on this aerial view. Total project cost is $72,458. Project funding will come from the Spirit Open Equestrian Program in the amount of $52,458 and $20,000 for the Master Brook grant if approved. Staff from the Park Operations Division will manage this project. Fiscal impact of the grant, if approved, will be $20,000 from the 2020 park bond funding. The resulting balance in funding set aside for Master Brook matching grants fund will be $617,060.
Questions on this one?
Great organization.
Consensus to move forward?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. With the messengers out of the way, I'd like to take a little bit of time and talk about PROSA overall. Don't have a goal, right, of trying to have all end all, come up with a perfect plan of how to move forward with PROSA. But I know Bill and I have had some conversations, Kyle and I, Jay and I, kind of had some conversations and want other people's input in the mix of how we're going to address.
Limit, I think you mean Madison Brook.
I'm sorry. PROSA matters.
It does have a role to play, but.
Somewhere Sam, who's left, has turned her car around. So it's headed back here for this conversation.
I was a little like, what did I miss?
Yes,
I think it's thank you for very much the correction. Anyway, a couple of the ideas and concepts that we've talked about that we want to run by everybody else and see what other concepts everybody else can come up with. The first one that was kind of important to me is that we come up with a structure where the expectations of getting a Madison Brook grant when you apply for it are pretty much known up front. In other words, it's not going to be a real political thing, similar to what we do right now. With that said, concepts that we've talked about are, or the primary concept we've talked about, some sort of cap for the price of the projects, where X dollar amount, any project above that would no longer qualify to apply for a Madison Brook grant. And that's to keep the small projects where the need is great. And what frankly, what Madison Brook was intended for is to help small projects get done, kind of thing. And avoid just giving an extra 20 grand to somebody that's doing $800,000 project or something like that. So this concept of cap is one that we've talked about, and I think we have kind of a loose consensus that might be a good way to approach it. An element of the cap that would help bring it into the PROSA is when we have projects where people come to us and they want to spend $800,000 or something, we then would have the ability to use Madison Brook grant money to do another project in a part of the county that has a lot greater need or has need that maybe this big project does not have. That's where we would use PROSA to determine by the president, with the approval of the board, where we would spend that Madison Brook money that we used to just give away basically on projects where it did not affect the outcome of the project, whether it was going to be done or not. That's what we've kind of loosely talked about. Kyle, Jay, Bill, anything to add? Just
I mean, well, let me take a step back first of all. And the idea with this is just to get some ideas from everybody out on the table, so that staff can put something on paper that we can then respond to in that first January meeting, which is the, I don't know, 13th, 10th, whatever it is. so we can kind of move as quickly as possible to unfreezing Massenbrook applications, basically the thought here. So there's an opportunity for everybody to get anything out on the table. I think Glenwood captures part of what was discussed. I think, Bill, you got a couple other additional ideas that you may want to cover. The only thing that I'll say, this is the kind of my pet piece of this, is I do want to make sure that when we get a presentation or the item that is in the board package, that, and I know we're going to be moving forward, putting all potential projects through that ProSol lens and that kind of categorization and scoring. I just want to make sure that's part of this explicitly. We see that when it comes to us as an item. I want that to be part of the presentation. That's the kind of the thing that I'm looking forward. So in terms of throwing things out there and to put on paper for us responding later, that's kind of my one.
Yeah, what I want to do, what I want to do, look at, and we've had these discussions. I think Massenbrook serves the best purpose for projects that are not on our work plan, that are community group, community-led projects. I think the people that come to the top of that list would be any of those folks that are doing adopt a field or adopt a something now, because they're investing lots of dollars and lots of effort into those. They typically maintain those fields or facilities themselves on their own dollar. They also get the most use out of those facilities, and they're responsible for the most part for cleaning up those facilities. So I think certainly there should be almost a no-brain decision in those groups, because typically those are athletic groups. They're trying to fix a fence or put in a batting cage or a new pitching mound or something like that. So I think we should certainly be able to acknowledge their investment in our public facilities and providing them to the community at large. The second group would be any type of small neighborhood community group that's maybe looking to put a park bench in or a small garden or things like that to beautify or to enhance their community. Again, these are projects that are not in our work plan. We don't have them on our radar anywhere, and they're pretty small. And I think those are the kinds of projects, along with what Linwood was talking about with the cap, that we should that should pretty much be a no-brainer for us in terms of supporting those efforts. Any project on our work plan that is going to, and if it's on our work plan, it's a big dollar amount. It's a capital project. It's going to be a lot of money. And so I think that, you know, when you start to change the nature of that project on a work plan, and you're starting to talk bigger bucks, where $20,000, like Linwood said, is not going to make a whole lot of difference. If there's an effort like that, I think a couple of things need to be considered. One is taking it to the foundation, because the foundation brings us their list of projects that they would like to be included in the work plan. And so if it's a big dollar amount, the foundation should maybe prioritize that, knowing that the work plan is the work plan. If something goes on the work plan, something comes off the work plan, and it needs to be done that way. And I'm certainly in favor of a cap, like Linda said.
Mike, I think I saw your hand.
Yeah, just point of clarification, so I understand what you were saying. If I can't remember, I think it said 800,000, but a big project somewhere else.
Any of the dollar.
Yeah, but
amounts that we
I'm
put
saying-
just for
Yeah, but
compensation.
whatever you, because I support the idea conceptual of that piece, but if you said something about then taking money from the Massenbrook grant and going to a community and trying to do a project in a community that is maybe not as well served. Are you talking about a $20,000 project, or are we now talking about taking $600,000, $800,000 out of Massenbrook?
All up for discussion. Nothing firm, just concept at this point, and it could be set at 20, it could be, we actually had talked about the possibility of a graduated scale. These are all concepts. These are not worked out. The dollar amounts have not even been thoroughly vetted, you know, at this
Yeah,
point.
the cap idea, I think, makes a lot of sense. The idea of taking chunks of money out of that fund.
Yeah.
When there are theoretically other budget funds and everything else that we designed for that, I think bothers me if it's like, oh, let's go fund a project for $250,000
Yeah.
out of a thing that only has $617,000. Because we'll just drop it, but
Yeah,
the
but
concept-
just the premise in that is that likely the person that's bringing you an $800,000 project is going to be in an area of the county with less need from a PROSA perspective than another part of the county. So once you got above that cap, you have the ability to take some money, totally to be discussed, right? From that donation, apply it to a quote PROSA project that you then identified in a part of the county that has need.
I think that's
identified
different
by
than what you
PROSA.
described earlier. Like, I'll just say this.
That's what I meant.
The idea of a cap on the project size
Yeah.
makes a tremendous amount of sense.
Right.
I don't know where the magic number in that cap is, figure that out, but the idea of because whether it is a group that is saying, hey, we use this great soccer field, but the balls are always going out in the parking lot, we want to put a fence around. And therefore, we want to partner with you to put a fence around, those kinds of projects we want to encourage and do and all that kind of stuff. So I'm all for that piece. I'm getting queasy at the idea of either A, the person who's coming to the table with the $800,000 project, oh, by the way, we're gonna take a chunk of that and put it somewhere else.
No.
Or B, the idea of taking a large piece of Masterbrook money. You know, oh, we're gonna go do a project, we want to do this project over there, so let's take $200,000 and go over there. That,
Well, the balance of
me.
that is, and I totally hear you, we even broached that in our discussions, is that, yeah, you don't want to completely deplete PROSA with some big dollar matching amount or something. With some big dollar amount. But a lot of times you can't get a lot done with 20 grand. So that's the discussion.
I lived
That's
through the
balance.
turf field
And
process.
we're not trying to solve that tonight. We're just talking.
I
about
lived through the county high school turf field problem. I get what you're saying. I'm just saying that there are other ways to address that with other funds and other budget lines we have, rather than going to take and repurposing the Masterbrook grant money. I'm just not sure that I would go after that money. That's all
Can I
I'm
ask a
saying.
question, and I want this to be a discussion, but I just want to get you guys, if that's off the table of the pushing, if we just take Linwood's first, we're trying to take notes and see where everybody is. If we took the cap, like a cap of what is considered a Masterbrook, not saying that we're not gonna take it, if it's $1 million project, it just would not be a Masterbrook, it would go through the foundation. So I think the first idea that is if you're bringing, and I'm just throwing it out, bringing $1 million project, the $20,000 isn't gonna mean a hell and beans. And so let's leave that in Masterbrook for the categories that Bill was talking about. So we took off the repurposing of the 20 grand someplace else. Where are you with the cap and the what is considered a Masterbrook and not?
I'm comfortable with for lack of a better way to put it, a project cap, the project budget is X.
Yeah.
And if it's a X or lower, we'll give, as long as we build into this circuit breakers for people trying to cheat the system.
Yeah.
And coming to the table, and instead of bringing a $300,000 project, because we have a cap at 100, they'd bring three $100,000 projects from three different groups all into the same park. And all of a sudden now they've gamed the system. They just brought $60,000 that's actually cost us 40 instead of 3. So we have to have some circuit breakers into how we.
Absolutely, and that's why the board would still review every.
But
Masterbrook
so,
that comes to us.
answering Jay's question,
Right.
I'm just saying that piece, I am comfortable with, let's go encourage doing a project somewhere else with a 20 and have a matching, because we can match people power too.
Yeah, right.
In terms of going and doing some things. I just am uncomfortable with it taking huge chunks of money out of that fund.
Okay, so I agree with what you're saying, Mike. I agree with the cap. I think that's, and I like what Bill said. I like, the double, triple dipping. restrictions or limitations. But I think I would go, and I like the fact that we are continuing the program generally, so we're not taking anything away from anybody. But I think I would go a little bit further, and I would say, if the request is coming from a PROSA area, then maybe instead of matching 50% at a $20,000, we match up to 75 or 80%.
There you go.
There you go. That's a great suggestion.
There you go.
That could use a little bit more help for these.
Absolutely.
For these smaller projects.
Oh, I would, so I was actually thinking that 20,000 would potentially be all the money. I mean, so in my mind, I was thinking it could, but I also remember that we match people power, so getting the community involved at some level. I think having done lots of different kinds of programs, I think when you get people involved, rather than just going in and saying, we think this is a good idea, we talked to 3 of your neighbors, they think it's a good idea, we're building it here. Getting people to buy in and do something helps make the community love it more.
This discussion's all about concepts. Great idea. Great idea. That's why we're having this discussion.
I'd like to put in a question, because what I haven't seen is the history of the Mastonbrook program to date that says we aren't already doing that kind of equity, diversity, and inclusivity within the program with our current decision process.
We aren't.
We haven't been able to match it up against the PROSA.
We've given $20,000 or 10 or 20, depending on what it was, to projects that were $800,000 field renovations.
But I want to see the history. Yes, that's one instance. But what about the history of all the projects we put together over the last 5 years? And because I would guess a majority of them are the 2020 max caps. They're mostly all athletic fields. They're mostly all multi-purpose places. They're mostly all in areas where maybe PROSA would apply. But I haven't seen that. So I need to see the history before I make a decision on changing.
We can
a program
resend it.
That's been fairly successful for a really long time.
We're not making any decisions tonight. We're brainstorming.
Yeah,
That's a good
but
point.
Sarah just said she'll resend that information around.
And I just want to, this wasn't, the reason why I'm asking the question to try to get more information is because just a reminder of when we started, this came from the criteria that we have laid out for us for Mastonbrook. We followed, and we had a issue where the board had an issue with a Mastonbrook that came forward. So we said, okay, what would you like us to do? So this is our response to what would you like us to do to change why the board had an issue with the Mastonbrook. We're not bringing this as we would like to change
And
Mastonbrook.
for that project, I don't think I had a problem with the Mastonbrook. I had to make a decision on a project and whether we would fund it. Not whether it was PROSA or not, or where it was. It was, is this a project we want to fund?
Right.
Through the Mastonbrook.
Yeah.
Kind of in that vein of question asking, we may have it now, we may not. But since we've been throwing a cap around, do we know what the median or average project has been?
So Julie pulled together the projects since FY 13. There was 108. 92 of those projects were from up to $100,000.
So 99 were 0 to 100. And what is that? Like
92
92
were 0 to 100,000.
Out of how many again?
108. So I mean, the
most
vast
of them are
majority.
0 to 100.
I swear Mike to give us a percentage, but very high percentage. Thank you.
Right, but the vast majority were in that 0 to 100 range. Okay.
Which I think tracks, because I don't think that everybody, it wasn't until last time that everybody like, I think the rest of them kind of worked well within the Mastonbrook. So at 85%, we don't want to throw out, the baby with bathwater. It's just trying to, how do we figure out, how does the board give us the tools to help you weed out those other 10% that you don't want? But we need some sort of a guidance to bring it to you in some way to allow you to do that. Otherwise, just the way it's written now, we would just bring them as.
But it's more than that. It's more than just weeding out the ones that were like, boy, they really didn't need it. It is trying to put a PROSA lens on this and encourage things where there's PROSA need. So it is more than just getting out the ones we don't like.
I would also say that it's more than we are not, we should not put you all in the position of arbitrarily having to figure that kind of stuff out. We are in a position where we can modify the criteria at the front end for what projects are within the scope of being able to apply. And I would remind everybody here, although
I remember my first comment was that.
I would remind everybody here, and I know that it came up before. We can look at a problem, we don't have to approve them all.
Yep.
I mean, we can vote, no.
You better have pretty good reason not to, though.
Yeah, that's.
No, I understand, but I'm just saying that when we sit there and look at them, because otherwise, if it's all an automatic yes, then why not just create the criteria, turn it over to staff and us get out of the way? If it's an automatic yes, and we're not going to exercise any kind of fiduciary duty of overlooking the fund, then why is it a decision that comes to us at all? So we have to keep that in mind.
We're the safeguard, we're the final, okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Jim.
I guess a couple of points. One, been very interesting that all the different comments that have been made, and not that it should be a surprise, but I think there's a lot of compatibility amongst those. I don't see a conflict, and I see value in each one of the points that were raised. The other point I'd like to make is we aren't going to implement PROSA in a meaningful way without a lot more money going to it that isn't coming out of Master Book Grant. So I know we know that. I'm just putting it, there's a lot of conversation here about Master Book and PROSA and the like, but that's gonna be, I think it'll be good for small projects and but it's not enough in terms of the equity that needs to occur. So I leave that thought out there. And one other, but I'll come back to it if need be. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that Jim made a good point, but going back to a comment you made, when we started Maston Brook, what was our intent? And you stated it. We weren't going after the $800 million projects. It was for those community groups that needed some help in planting a garden or putting up a backstop or whatever. That was the purpose of the whole thing. And if we keep that in mind, I think that will guide us to establishing a lid or a maximum on the project.
Well said.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Before you wrap it up then, since nobody else has anything, this isn't really related to changing the criteria, but I do think a related piece of it is we probably need to do a better job of making a broader range of communities aware that this exists. I don't have a good answer what that looks like. So I'm just giving staff work to do.
It's 100 times better than what it was.
Oh, yeah.
I don't doubt
And
that.
that's why we raised it to $20,000 because people started finding out about Maston Brook.
But, and I don't have the long enough time.
Outreach committee.
Hello,
That
right?
might have some. be able to help.
I don't have a long enough horizon to know what it before. I'm sure it is better now. But it certainly could get better. And we do get, we do get the same groups or adjacent groups over and over again. So.
Well, and to that point, one of the reasons the athletic groups, only certain ones were applying for a while until we were able to talk to NCS and get them to communicate. Now that's kind of died down because they don't have their mass meeting where Ken spoke at a couple of them, I spoke at a couple of them, just reminding people that it existed. But getting the word out, I think is is important.
On that point, if I may, just quickly, we do have, of course, the criteria you can reapply every fiscal year. So I don't know if you want to take another look at the frequency of applications.
You know, that there's been some controversy on that, and I know one that I've been involved in recently, we actually determined that we probably shouldn't have been doing that, shouldn't do that. So, yes, well said.
But at the same time, we intentionally try to set it up so that you could apply for multiple programs in the same year for up to $20,000. So if you had a $10,000 project at one park and a $10,000 project at the other park, you could do 5 and 5.
I wasn't saying that.
Yeah, no, but those kinds of things are, we just gotta figure it out.
And we also need to get aggressive with using proffer dollars that are available. They're not a piggy bank. They are supposed to be used.
We'll hold that for
Another time.
discussion.
That needs to be said.
All right, everybody hungry? Everyone hungry?
Does staff have a clear enough direction that can put something on paper for January? Okay.
Thank you very much. I think good discussion. Thank you. With that, any other business for the operation? Being done, I agree.
That's done. We're good now? All right. We're gonna reconvene the December 13th, 2023 Park Authority meeting. Ben, do we have any speakers this evening?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we have two speakers this evening. Members of the board, I think they have provided some handouts to go along with their remarks. Our first speaker will be participating virtually. Pleased to introduce Mr. Mike Correll. From the Mason District. Mr. Correll, you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Mike Correll. I live in the Braddock District. When I last had the opportunity to speak to this board in July 2021, I was explaining that pickleball is for people who are too old for tennis, but too young for bingo. Now, the question is, how do you tell if something is a tennis court or a pickleball court? The answer is a pickleball court is the one that has people on it. So if you've been reading the national news or feedback from players in Fairfax County, this will not come as a surprise. And so one of the reasons I wanted to take time to talk to you again about pickleball is to thank you and the Park Authority for responding to the desires and needs of the growing pickleball community here. And also for following up on some of the recommendations in the Park Authority's pickleball study. Looking at figure 1 in the handout that you've got, you can see one indication of how responsive the Park Authority has been to this growing interest. You can also see that Mount Vernon appears to be the pickleball capital of Fairfax. And importantly, you can see whether the courts are shared with tennis or dedicated to pickleball, which is the optimum approach for most players. So thank you for providing all these places to play wherever they are. And I apologize, I think there was maybe a typo about how we named Hogue Park by the first name of one of the donors, but that's the one in Mason District. So in figure 2, you can see an indication of pickleball popularity, the trends in the number of pickleball classes offered by the Park Authority and how it compares to tennis trends. I think the numbers speak for themselves. And even just looking at the beginner pickleball classes, 34 compared to 6 beginner tennis classes. So the trend is obvious. So in addition to showing appreciation for these developments, the other reason for my comments is to suggest some of the ways that I and other county pickleball advocates think the Park Authority can do even better to meet the growing need for public playing opportunities. Some of those suggestions actually come directly from the pickleball study, which clearly recognized the importance of community drop-in playing opportunities, which the report explained as a system, quote, where players drop in without advance reservation to play other drop-in players. Play follows a rotation system for those players waiting for court space. So some specific recommendations related to that, that I think more needs to be done. One is consider the design and construction of at least 2 pickleball-only facilities suitable for large group drop-in play and tournaments. Dedicated tennis courts that are determined to be underutilized or shared use courts that are primarily used for pickleball should be prioritized for conversion to a dedicated pickleball-only complex prior to considering building a new complex. So despite this recommendation, you can see in figure 3 in the handout that the current plans call for single tennis courts to be shared with 2 pickleball courts. And using Wakefield, that's near me, as an example, the shared use courts there are primarily already used for pickleball and could be converted to 6 dedicated courts per the study's recommendation. And so, the question is, can we be a little bit more flexible in deciding when a existing tennis court could be converted? Second recommendation from the county's Park Authority's report designates specific times, days for pickleball or tennis use only on a first come, first served basis at shared use courts that offer 4 or more pickleball courts to reduce conflicts between different user groups. These designated times will be posted on signage and be made available online. So that recommendation from the report is close to what's needed, but may not be clear enough about what's needed to support community drop-in play. At Wakefield, again, the one I'm most familiar with, but other courts too I've heard about, there are no posted rules or consistent times for drop-in play, especially at times when drop-in is most likely to be used by older adults, in other words, in the mornings and some evenings. The only signs I see at Wakefield are when the courts are reserved for classes or leagues or paying customers with friends. And these restricted times are usually the times when us older adults want to play as opposed to the middle of the day in the sun. And in fact, at Wakefield.
Mr. Grill, you hit the 5-minute mark. If you can sum up your final thoughts.
Okay. Well, my final thoughts is follow more of the recommendations in your report and do more to promote community drop-in play. Be more flexible with your rules about conversion to dedicated courts, and it may not be as costly as building new courts. So,
thank you very much. We really appreciate those comments. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
okay.
Members of the board, our second speaker tonight is Mr. Lauren Kropet from the Sully District. Mr. Kropet, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Look at what I handed out here, it has to do with dogs. It has to do with dogs off leash in the park. It has to do with signage. On the second page, what I handed out is a location I'm talking about. It's one of the many sections. Difficult runs through Valley Park, located halfway between Redmond and Ocean and up to Mountain. It's north of Gables Garden. I live there. On documentation, I see at least 3, the average, dogs every day walking this park. More on some days with 9, more on other days. I've gone down to the park, I started counting the dogs. 1 to 20, takes a couple days. First time I did that, 18 out of the first 20 dogs I saw were off the leash. Later, I did it again, 19 of the 20 dogs I saw were off the leash. Now, if we average just 3 dogs a day, much more than that. That's 1,000 dogs in this park, 2/3 mile long over the year off the leash. I've gone down and talked to this dog walker. The first thing I tried was, do you mind putting your dog on a leash?
I don't do tagging. I've run into too many Karens in my life, and it's not something I want to do again. People are nice. They love this place. It's great to let the dogs run free. They get to chase the deer. They get to run in the water, difficult run. They get to chase the foxes. This is great. I ran across the internet posting the other couple of years ago. Someone said, where can I take my dog to run? Free. Here. Drive to Great Bristol Gardens, Reston, Vienna, Overton, and surrounding, park there and go north. Up the side. Now, they do chase the fox, they're not gonna catch them. My problem might be though, they dig up the fox and pull it looking for the babies. Within 100 yards from my house, 2 of them have been dug out. There's a picture of one of them there. Later on. Dogs do what dogs do, they do. Thousands of them. If your dog is off the leash and you're busy on your cell phone, you can't see your dog. And even if you do, it's in vegetation. You're not gonna do it. It's in the water. You're not going to water to do it. But the good news is this: Mother Nature takes care of it. But this is RPA. But Mother Nature overflows, flushes out this park periodically. Takes all that dog crap, puts it in difficult run, takes it down. Your Great Falls and dumps it in Potomac down to DC. That's good for us. So I asked the park for help on this. Turned me down saying it's not their problem. I have to talk to the police. Now, of course, there's an email at the end. I had many emails. This is just one of the emails. Something. I thought the police were very nice. They came out there and uh-oh. These trails are not acceptable by their vehicles. So they can't get down there and look at them on a regular basis. They're very nice. It's please call the non-emergency number. Anytime you see a dog on the loose. But you don't have the people, you don't have the officers. I get that. So, next thing. Why don't we put up dogs must have leash signs at this park entrances? Park authority wrote me that no. The police officers went to the park and asked the same thing, and the park said no. Because it's against policy. There's a policy, which is why I'm here today, ask you to look at this policy and change it. Your policy is you do not put regulatory signs where there are no trails. Okay. Even park even said, hey, go check Trail Buddy, you'll find there's no trails in Trail Buddy, that app. I know that, there's a picture of it on here. You know what I say to that? Boom! I'm not gonna say the rest of it. Take a look at the map.
Mr. Kropet?
Yes.
You get 5 minutes, if you'd like to sum up your thoughts.
Okay, I'm gonna sum up right now. Park Authority senior official has told me there's a reason there are no trails here is because they don't acknowledge them. There's all these trails, but and the Park Authority knows that there's trails. I was told. Number two, they know that these are not authorized trails. And three, they turn a blind eye toward these trails. Nothing I can do about that. I just want you to change the regulations. Staff, I'm almost done. The staff out there told me the money problem. So I want to put my money where my mouth is. I will fund these signs. I'll pay for them. You tell me how much it costs. I will go to the Park Foundation, write a check. Give them guy these signs. And if you tell me that you don't have people install them, I'll take care of that too. I'll install them. My goal here is not to go after people. I want to cut 1,000 dogs down to something decent range. I want to cut the exception down so it's not the place in Western Fairfax County to bring your dogs. And I am really into this because this last thing. Pretty good. If you look at that map, On the second page, you can see a red, block. My house, second page. That's my house. That's into the park. It's 80 feet, 100 feet to, about run, it's 80 feet to the trail on that side. 2 feet the other side. I get overrun by dogs, for going to my house, about my grandchildren. That's him. He is a good neighbor. Hospitalist, be a good neighbor. Just like Fred Rogers says. Don't me out there, and I'll work with you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you joining. That's all the speakers we have for this evening.
All right, next thing on our agenda is a presentation from our auditors on our annual comprehensive financial report. And we have somebody from Cherry Becker with us this evening.
Good evening, I'm Tanya Mills with the Financial Management Department, and this evening our external auditors are here to present our 2028 effort. We have Zach Morata, who is our manager and primary contact on the audit, as well as Molly Seth, who is the senior managing partner.
We'll try to keep this short. You know, it's a long day so far, but we'll try to keep it entertaining too. This presentation in front of you is not only the results of the audit for FY 23 that ended June 30, 2023, but also has some of our required communications with those to our government in this case under the standards of company. So there's a brief agenda of what we will go through. Feel free if you have any questions to stop us and ask us any questions. This is basically our org chart. As you can see, the authorities board is the primary government. We work with management, well dotted, but we report to the board. So any issues that we find, any communication points or controls or any other matters that come to our attention, we are responsible to share that with the board. And Zach is the manager on it. I'm Malo. This is my first year being on the Parks Authority audit. Been in public accounting for a number of years now, but it's glad to be the first year I'm doing this audit and a wonderful experience working with management throughout the audit process. Briefly, the results of the audit, which is the 3 pages of opinion that goes on management's financial statements. The responsibility of the financial statements lies with management. Preparing those financial statements are responsibility of management. Our responsibility as independent auditors is to look at the numbers on a test basis and ensure the disclosure in the financial statements are proper. And then we render an opinion. The opinion is an unmodified opinion. So that's the highest level of assurance that we as independent auditors can provide, that the financial statements are free from material misstatements. Free from material misstatements for error and for fraud. Error, easier to catch. Fraud, very hard to catch because of the collusion that could happen. But we look at the controls within the Parks Authority, how management is approving the transactions, how they're reporting the transactions, are there segregation of duties in there. Based on those facts and the testing that we do on a sample basis, we come to a conclusion that it's unmodified opinion. There's another report that goes along with the ACFR, the annual comprehensive financial review, is auditing under the government auditing standards. So it would require us to look at any kind of compliance under any of the grants or legal documents to ensure that all the authority is compliant with that. We can find out issues with that. And then also we look at the county body for the state Commonwealth of Virginia. They offer and management to do certain procedures to see if the authority is compliant with their requirements. We tested for those two and we did not find any conflict with them. Now I would like to pass it over to Zach, kind of go into the details of some of the issues, one of the issues that we found in this matter, and then provide the details for that.
Thank you for having us here. I want to go into more detail just of our audit specifically, and start off kind of the internal controls that we look at. So as part of our audit, we consider internal control over financial reporting. And these basically internal controls are just, the controls in place are hopefully there to help prevent any misstatements that might occur throughout an audit, help prevent fraud, not compliance, etc. We only provide limited procedures over these internal controls. They're not kind of the subject of our audit, but I think we hope let's get that opinion yet. So with that said, we do not express an actual opinion on the internal controls themselves, but we do have some limited purpose parameters to at least go over them during an audit. During this time, we're looking at internal control, with how internal control just is inherently not everything can be caught within an audit. However, having material deficiencies exist, and I'll go over it kind of what those are. We're usually going to report on those. Just let make the government aware that they exist. So a deficiency in internal control is what a material weakness or significant deficiency is. It's just when that control that's designed or operating is not operating efficiently to help counter or detect those mistakes that might occur. I kind of had some bullet points here on the big two. So material weakness is kind of the largest deficiency you can have. It's basically just saying there's a very reasonable possibility that because of this weakness, there could be a material misstatement to the financial statements as a whole. And then a significant deficiency is basically the step right below that. It might not be as material as a weakness, but it's still important. So during our audit, we did know one deficiency that we believed was material weakness and not important. So to kind of go into a bit more detail on what that material weakness was. So during our testing, we performed what we call a search for unreported liabilities. These are basically just going to be invoices that the authority pays for after year end that relate to services performed during the current year. So what we found during our testing were a few instances where invoices that were paid after the year end, so after June 30th, 2023, but related to services performed during the fiscal year, so from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, were not properly approved for during the year, so they weren't reported in and shown in financial statements. There's also one instance that had an opposite occurrence where there was an invoice that had services performed in FY24, but was reported in FY23. So due to these matters, that's how we came to the option of material weakness due to the magnitude of items that were missing during the time. So what we like to do, we brought a recommendation, related to that internal control matter. And our recommendation basically just revolves around making sure the authority thoroughly reviews the invoices that are paid after year end to ensure that one, they're capturing when those services were performed, and then ensuring that they were going throughout the period.
If I may quickly, so is the statement then, is there a restatement of the financial statements, or is it just remain as is with that notation?
So no restatements of the financial statements. However, there is an adjustment that was made during the year just to cover for those expenses to make sure that they were recorded properly. So no sort of restatement, just an adjustment with what we're about to do.
I would like to mention management has the opportunity to respond to that as a corrective action. That was provided to us. We don't audit the corrective action plan this year, but when we come back next year, we will see what implementation controls were changed. So we can test the same kind of documentation, but also see how well the corrective action plan is working. So that would be also part of the ACFR, the management response to the corrective action plan. So that's it there, and that's kind of good governance also to just make sure that what has been put in place and what management are on the finding of the corrective action plan.
Kind of in line with our internal control plans a lot of times, we kind of walk around these on the statements in the financials, and this kind of gives you a bit more detail of what exactly that misstatement was. So we classify this as a corrective misstatement, which is basically just saying, we noted an error within our auditing, and it was then corrected for by management afterwards based on discussion with them. So we basically accumulate these throughout the audit, and then we'll put here how we find them. This was the only corrective misstatement that included, so, basically there were some, additions to the liabilities and related expenditures that were missing based on the invoices, and those were basically added on to the financial statements, both on the fund level and the government-wide level. On those statements.
One thing I would like to, these kinds of errors are not uncommon, so the audit log will have it. You have to think there are thousands, if hundreds of transactions, thousands of transactions going through, so missing 1, 2 is not unusual. We see this all the time. We have findings for other governments too. It's easy to miss, but at the same time, if the controls are there, for sure, and we'll be working. I know we have at length discussed with management about this, so they know and their steps put in place to kind of correct this, starting a little bit earlier, like before the year, and again, all the places, getting it right. So I don't want to minimize the material restatement, but at the same time, it's not a unique situation in a lot of government.
Kind of in line with corrected, we also report on any uncorrected misstatements. These would be misstatements that we just deemed not material, and they didn't have to flow with the financial statements this year. We noted no such those adjustments in the statements. The next couple of slides are kind of just overall accounting practices and just kind of required communications that we like to have during the presentation. The first one is talking about the overall accounting policies of the authority. These are described in A of the financial statements. There were one standard that were, sorry, 2 standards that were implemented during the year for the authority, those in Captain and NOI respectively, that had an impact just on the statements themselves, which we go through an audit during the year. So we had no material impact for the adoption of GASB 91. Was not with that obligation, but there wasn't time for GASB 96, which we reviewed, and we did not have any issues with findings related to the implementation of that standard. Moving forward, we also looked over what we call related party relationships and transactions. These are pretty common among governments to have. We really just look for any issues related to related parties is a pretty important disclosure within the financial statements. So during our audit, we noted none of these items are occurring, which include any related parties that were not disclosed to us previously. There were no significant related party transactions that hadn't been approved or that weren't following any policies and procedures that were already in place. There was no significant related party transactions that appear to lack any purpose or documentation behind it. No non-compliance with any laws or regulations surrounding these types of transactions. And there were no difficulties in actually identifying who those related parties were during our audit.
Give an example, the related party would be transactions that happen in the Fairfax company. On behalf payments that are made, those are related party. Any transactions with the foundations, those would be considered related party. So just to give you context of what related party you can look at, we also try to look for any undisclosed related party in here too. So those are there that needs to be disclosed.
Moving forward, so we also look for any what we call significant unusual transactions. These would kind of be transactions that are just outside the normal course of business and pretty material in nature. For the purpose of our audit, we noted no such items during our procedures. We also diligently make sure that any transactions that are kind of within the normal course of business and can also be significant, follow the correct guidance. And following all policies and procedures related to it. And in that case, we also no issues related to any of the significant transactions during the year. Another big disclosure within the statements is the accounting estimates. So these are estimates made by management that are usually just revolving around either current events, historical trends that they've seen in the past, assumptions of the future, et cetera, that because are fairly sensitive to those changes, either in those trends or future conditions that might be expected. We like to report on some of the more sensitive estimates that are used in the financial statements that create some of these balances and show up in the financials and throughout the statements. We know the 3 that we've considered to be kind of more sensitive and significant, which include the capital assets, depreciable lives, the valuations related to pension and other, post-employment benefit liabilities, as well as just fair value of investments. You will basically look at the key factors and assumptions related to these, estimates, looking just to see, you know, how they were created, the underlying documentation on the assumptions that are made when looking at these estimates, and you get a no issues with this. Reasonable. One of my favorite slides here, very small. It's stating we review the disclosures of the financial statements during our audit, and just ensure that they're neutral, consistent, and clear to the, you know, the users of the financial statements, and, you know, no issues with them. Moving forward, we always review independence when doing our audit, usually in our very early planning stages. What makes it easy, we perform no non-test services for the authority during our audit. We just perform the audit and nothing else. We're not aware of any other circumstances, you know, outside of any non-test services provide that would create such a threat to independence, and therefore we feel comfortable that we're independent of the authority. Our ethical responsibilities. Some other requirements that we like to add in. Just overall, we had no significant difficulties or difficulties in general dealing with anything, including our audit. It was, yeah, always has been for the last couple of years, continuing to be a nice relationship of working through the audit. We had no disagreement in terms of any financial accounting reporting matters, no auditing matters. Nothing about the guidance, everything we were able to discuss, and reached an agreement for every item. As auditors, we didn't use any outside consultants outside of our normal engagement team when going through the audit. And at the end of every audit, including the authority, we always request certain representations from management that are detailed in the main representation letter, which is the same day as the local date. Other items, so based on our knowledge, management never went out and consulted third parties or other accountants to get any second opinion on any transactions or certain events throughout our audit. We didn't know other, you know, findings or issues outside of kind of what we discussed. And you know, each year we'll have discussed over some of the smaller findings or issues that will be brought to audit. But a lot of that is really just kind of communication between the parties to kind of hammer those things out. We didn't know broader legal acts or any violations of laws, regulations during our audit. And there were also no events that came up that would indicate any substantial doubt about the authority's ability to continue that going. Finally, some other information just regarding the ACPRA itself. Just basically as part of the ACPRA as a whole, there's required supplementary information that needs to be reported. This is not technically a part of the basic set of financial statements, and therefore we don't provide it and makes it or express an opinion on the required information. What we do, we kind of form living procedures over these, just ensuring that it's clear, that it's consistent with those basic financial statements. Nothing materially wrong from the outside. Same overall, this bullet point of the annual report. There's many items that kind of coexist to make the annual report, including the basic statement and kind of other information similar to that required information. And similar to that, we perform some living procedures over that, just ensuring that it's very consistent. And that there's nothing materially wrong. We don't express that opinion on. Lastly, just some upcoming financial reporting changes that might be affected in the future, either next year, years to come. Just listed here and management and authority and full. The last couple of years,
that's end of the presentation. It's a very high level of all the hard work that was put in the past couple of months to get to this. The highlight should be, it's a clean opinion, it's unmodified opinion, so that kudos to management in making sure that the reports are clean. Outside of that one weakness that we saw, everything else checked out based on the testing. So again, thank you, Tanya, and our team for all the help you got it. But and it's a long process, and this was 15 minutes of presentation, so please feel free to ask any questions.
Anybody got anything? All right. Thank you both for the presentation.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, administrative item number 1 is the board resolution to honor Paul Shirey upon his retirement after 35 years of service to Fairfax County. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. All right, I got a proclamation here. Whereas Paul Shirey has served the residents of Fairfax County with distinction for more than 35 years in various engineering roles with the Department of Public Works and Environmental Services, Land Development Services, and the last 6 years as part of the Planning and Development Division of the Fairfax County Park Authority. And whereas Paul has contributed his vast experience with the varying dynamics of Fairfax County government, the development process, and community expectations to anticipate and provide solutions for potential challenges and keep dozens of Park Authority projects moving forward within optimal parameters. And whereas his expertise and leadership have directly and positively impacted a variety of projects, including several rec center renovations, including those underway at Mount Vernon, several park development projects, including Patriot Park North, development of new facilities, including the newly completed Woodland Stewardship Education Center, which is great. If you haven't been there, you should go. Multiple trail and athletic field improvements, and over 12 million in energy efficiency projects at several park facilities. And whereas Paul has never missed an opportunity to share with his staff valuable insights, knowledge, and tricks of the trade obtained over a long career, while providing space for others to advance ideas using their unique talents and experience. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Fairfax County Park Authority Board that it expresses appreciation and thanks to Paul Shirey for dedicated and outstanding contributions to the Fairfax County Park Authority and residents of Fairfax County, adopted by the Fairfax County Park Authority Board on December 13th, 2023. Congratulations, Paul. I want to slide so I'm on this TV.
Oh, this is good.
All right.
Want to get him?
Sure, get in there.
Super plate.
Floor is yours, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Very much, and I'd like to introduce my wife, Kathy, before I get. Thanks for the very kind, encouraging words, that represent them, very much appreciated. We've been married 35 years, so we got married about 4 months before I started at the county. So I'm fine, we got 4 kids and 5 grandkids, and we got 1 on the way, but yeah, I really enjoyed my time at the county, I appreciate all the opportunities, and especially the last almost 7 years here at Park Authority. This has been a lot of fun, a lot of big challenges, and what I say is, it's almost like every week that I have to tap them all 40 years of my total experience, to the broad range of all the projects that we've got, and that's a lot of fun. Do a lot of cool things, all the projects that they listed. So, yeah, I'd say I got here through my connection with Dave Bowden. I worked with him on a fun little park called Peachtown Park, where the dam had failed, another dam, trouble there. But, and I also do John Lehman going back to about 25 years ago, working together with him. So all the foundation that they laid for improving the project implementation, I've been able to carry that forward from the base to the tires. And I think we're positioned well moving ahead with the team we have. for that 26 bond. That's what we need. So, and I'll just call attention to them. You really have a high performing group in that team, and it's been a pleasure managing them. And the success I've had is really the success here. It's through all their hard work and efforts, and so appreciate that. And working with everybody else, Park Board and other staff with Park Authority, we're all one big team. Although I seem to end up working with Linwood and Tim the most, so they get all the fun. But so yeah, it's the mentioned the staff, and my job has really just been to guide the branch and keep things moving, eliminate roadblocks and jams, and have a plate spinner and short order cook. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And I'll just say I'm the Park Authority with a strong sense of ownership and investment in the Lake Park facility we've been a part of. I was used to going to public meetings to get delayed, and sometimes that's happened here, but a lot of meetings we go to. Wow, so like, you know, that's I'm here to but finally, what I've enjoyed the most is the beautiful work, you know, working with staff, peers, everybody in the Park Authority. That's the most important thing. So I'll miss being as closely connected. We're staying put for the foreseeable future in the county. So I should be back for happy hours and things. So, anyway, thanks again for all the kind words and encouragement.
Thank you, Paul.
We get in the box. Do you have the box?
It's right
Okay.
there. You're ahead of, way ahead of you.
I just, you know,
She's not used to that.
it's not a lie.
I think that's a dig at Bill.
I was about to be like,
Administrative item number 2 is the recommended adoption of the minutes of the November 8th, 2023 Park Authority Board meeting.
So moved.
And a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. On action items, in the Braddock District, action item number 1 is the recommended approval of the time extension request for the All Ability Center project as presented to and reviewed by the Planning and Development Committee on November 8th, 2023.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Countywide, action item number 2 is the recommended approval of the proposed fee adjustments for 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. In the Hunter Mill District, action item number 3 is the recommended approval of a Maston Brook Volunteer Matching Fund Grant Award to the Cricket Association of Fairfax County in the amount of $15,325.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. In the Drainsville District, action item number 4 is the recommended approval of the Maston Brook Volunteer Matching Fund Grant Award to the Friends of Thomas A. Milken in the amount of $20,000. Do we have a motion? And a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. In the Hunter Mill District, action item number 5 is the recommended approval of Maston Brook Volunteer Matching Fund Grant Award to the Spirit Open Equestrian Center in the amount of $20,000.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. We have 3 information items this evening. First, the summer programs update as presented to the Park Services Committee on November 8th. Information item number 2 is the Planning and Development Division Quarterly Project Status Report as presented to the Planning and Development Committee on November 8th. And information on number 3 is the Fairfax County Park Foundation projects and funding update as presented to the Communications and Community Engagement Committee also on November 8th. Chairman's Matters, last time we saw each other was at the Ellie Doyle's celebration last month. And I just want to congratulate the winners again. And thank you, Tim and Cynthia, for all your work on putting that together, and Allison and the rest of the staff who were involved. Also want to congratulate and say good luck to the new and returning school board and board of supervisors members. Are getting sworn in today or earlier this afternoon, or it's happening sometime today. Anyone out there listening this evening, the first hike photo contest is just around the corner. In 2023, more than 300 hikers of all ages and abilities took to the trails, shared some great photos with us. It's very easy to participate if you didn't join in last year to join in this coming year. Just take a stroll through any of the park authorities, 420 sites, or along more than our 334 miles of trails on Monday, January 1st, 2024. Just take a photo and then submit your best one to us by noon on Tuesday, January 2nd for the chance to win some great park authority prizes. We'll see you all on Friday, I hope, at the holiday party. And last but certainly not least, I know she thought she was getting out here totally unscathed, but I do want to just say congratulations to Cindy Walsh. It's her last day, or last board meeting with us. I think she's got a few days left, but congratulations on your retirement. Thank you for everything you did for the county. And hope you have a fun next chapter. I hope I didn't get anyone in too much trouble.
Yeah.
Jay, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
It's strange, it was just up a second ago.
Take your time, Linwood's fine.
It's already dark. Can't get darker.
There we go. Okay, so directors matters. First, as Kyle said, there are going to be a few repeats in here. The 2023 Ellie Doyle Park Service Awards happened. It was my first time attending in person. It was a phenomenal night where we celebrated the achievements of 35 award recipients. Special recognition went to outgoing supervisors Penny Gross and John Faust, and former FCPA chairman, but current board member, Bill Bowie. I always have to add that in because it makes it seem like it's he's not here anymore. Hosted by News 4 Today co-anchor Jumi Alabanji. And special guest was Ellie Doyle herself and her 4 generations of her family. Again, I want to highlight the great work that the board did putting this together, and specifically down the Miss Cynthia, Mr. Tim, everybody else who worked on it. And it was an evening of storytelling highlighting the meaningful service and lasting positive impact on our community. I especially like the fact that if you look at our social, and thank you to our social team, they separated out each individual one. So if you go on Facebook, you can just watch the one or the two. And not have to sit through the whole thing. Next slide. Okay, so building construction complete on the Woodland Stewardship Education Center. It was a really phenomenal day and ribbon cutting for this one-of-a-kind interpretive center, built to the standards of the Living Building Challenge. Every part of the project, building materials, energy and water usage and production, learning and recreational features was intentionally designed to connect back to protecting and preserving our natural environment. We're going to be planning a large community event in the spring. I highly suggest getting out there, especially before the event. Not only do we do the Living Building Challenge and connecting the building and building it with intent back to protecting and preserving our natural environment, but it also gives you real world advice as to how you could do it at your house too. So it doesn't just say, oh, this large scale. There's a lot of learning you can walk through and read sort of and scale it down to things that you can do yourself. So that's really great. Next slide. Okay. Oh, it's a video.
And play through playground features and instructional.
What a beautiful facility, huh? I can't wait to tour the other parts. So I know some of you probably already had a sneak peek. And what we're trying to make a huge difference in is our quality of life and our planet, but also looking at the youngest of our guests here this morning. We're trying to make sure that we're paying it forward so that they can have clean air, clean water, and can grow up in a community that appreciates the value of our public resources.
So the park system is unique in that we take projects from the beginning to the end. And we have designers and engineers and naturalists and a whole lot of people who have expertise in what we're doing behind us. But we can't do it by ourselves. We utilize a lot of help from our county partners, support from Kathy Smith and the Board of Supervisors office to really bring this whole thing to life.
Their imaginations will soar as they are exposed to simple machines like the Archimedes screw. Their creativity will surge as they create music and works of art on the playground. And they'll be able to connect with nature through the universal languages of fun and play through playground features and instructional kiosks on the site. This new interpretive center is going to be a great feature for children, for adults, for everybody coming into the county, and we are off the grid. This is a sustainable building. We have solar panels. We have this great map on the floor that shows the Sully district, shows different features, just brings everything together so people can really get a bigger experience of where other things are in the county too that we can see. So kids will be able to experience this physically. Every piece of this facility will be a place where people can learn.
So I'm so happy to invite you into the Environmental Education Center, and then I'm going to kick you out to actually be able to experience all that the site has to offer. So hold on, Allison. So we have a thing, it's like a thing, where I add slides that Allison doesn't know that I add. And so that's the first thing. And then I have another thing where even though Cindy says that she doesn't want a lot of attention, I know that she really does. So go ahead and slip to the next one. Like my last opportunity to oh, sorry. It's perfect, right? Because you know, she was half of the Black Friday Golf Passes sales last year. So Black Friday Golf Pass sales soared. Total passes sold were 2,142, up 7%, and total revenue was $739,000, up 19%, which is really, really awesome. And so on the left shows our Black Friday Golf Pass sale that went from November 18th through the 29th, giving 25% off 15 rounds, 20% off 10 rounds, and 10% off 5 rounds. Wildly popular, and I was about to say, did we advertise that as the 1 year?
It's a 2-year.
It's two. This one's a 2-year. And we're saying they're going to 1 year. Okay, got it. Okay. And next slide. There's no place like parks for the holidays. We do the holidays really, really great. At the top is Burke Lake. We've got Cove and Run on the bottom left and right. No, Sully. Is that Cove and Run? Bottom left?
Sully.
Sully. Bottom left is Sully. At the bottom right is Frying Pan Farm Park. So all the activities, we had about 196 ticketed holiday activities, more than 6,000 participants so far. And we got a revenue coming in of 93,000 in revenues. And there it is.
There it is.
Like the last time I can like slip it in because, you know, I feel like inside she's really like an extroverted and not shy, and inside I'm actually shy and introverted. So I feel like the two of us together work really well. But again, I know we're not going to talk about, you know, Kyle said it. I just want to highlight, you know, how many years were you? How many years did you work?
2 or 3, I think.
33? 30, you know, all of Park Authority, right? If I ask questions, it ends up being like you spoke to us. You keep on asking questions and then it's like a speech, right? Right. I don't want to keep people long, but you know, 35 years of the same, you know, place. I think that Cindy's probably had 17 jobs in the agency, and not because of reasons why some people have 17 jobs, but in reasons where whenever there was a position that needed somebody strong to fill, she, you know, jumped. I don't know how many people would go from natural resources to rec services to what other jobs does she have?
ADA coordinator.
ADA coordinator, like just
operations manager for RMD, operations manager for park services.
It's one of those it's truly one of those things where there are people that you
Comic
hire
relief.
for talent, there are people that you hire for the big T talent. And that any job that we put her in, that she could have, you know, figured it out. If we had a hole in, we really need somebody in operations, then we would have put her in operations. If we really needed somebody someplace else, I had no doubt that Cindy would have been able to literally knock it out of the park. So just thank you so much for all of things that you've done for the last 33 years and dedicating a large part of your life. And, you know, I hope that you're able to spend more time with your family and not this family who still, you know, and come back and visit and go Nats. So you're welcome. We'll give her another.
Beth Lou, 9 of 10 directors. I've never met one as persistent as you. Embarrassment.
You know, ultimately, I'm a middle child. I'm a middle child of 3 girls. And so if the first time I did it, you had not reacted, it would have ended. But it's the reaction afterwards. It's like you don't react. And then, you know, those are the siblings know what I'm talking about.
Classes, you got anything for us? I'll pass. Jim? Ken?
I'll pass.
I'll pass. Michael?
Happy holidays, everybody. Host you Friday, but I do want to take a moment, since Cindy is probably the staff person I've known the longest. Though I hate to, our kids were probably what, 2nd and 3rd grade, 3rd and 4th grade, back in the day when we were both coaching together at Burke Athletic Club, and several directors ago, when it would be one of these issues, I'm like, I don't understand the park authority. Why are they doing this? And she would attempt to explain it to me. And that continued when I joined the athletic council, and I'd be like, Cindy, I don't understand. And she would explain it to me. But Cindy is not only has done well here, but I just want to point out she's been a treasure to the community as a whole, not just here at the park authority. I think that's people probably don't see as much here. But she's been a gym everywhere she goes, and it's gonna be sad to see her go. So thank you.
Ditto. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Great Ellie Doyle Award. It was great to see Ellie. It was a surprise. And thank you again for the recognition. I really appreciate it.
Linwood?
I hope to see everybody Friday. Just remember the last several years I have been from the extreme southern tip of Fairfax County, the extreme northern tip of Fairfax County to spend the Christmas party with you. So I definitely expect you all to come from your parts of the county and come spend the Christmas party with me. You Friday, Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Cindy, we share a name, and just want to say it's been great working with you. And thanks to everyone regarding the Ellie Doyle and my partner in crime here, as I like to say. Thank you, everyone. Happy, yes.
Extended team.
Yes, everyone. Happy holidays.
Jim?
Thank you. The only thing I'd say is I've had the privilege of attending a low key but a lot of fun holiday gathering at the Great Falls on behalf of the Great Falls Grange Foundation at the Grange, hosted by them. And I only mention it because there was so much gratefulness and appreciation for the agreement that we have with the Great Falls Grange Foundation, the work done by this authority and this staff and Amy Bosper in particular to make it. So.
I just want to thank everybody for all that long, hard work on to bring the Woodland Center inspiration. I remember when it was just an idea, and it's taken a lot of effort, a lot of money, and time, the ribbon cutting, but I think it's gonna bring us into the future. So I really thank you all, and I'll see you Friday.
Allison, we got anything else? All righty, with the what's today's date? December 13th, 2023 Park Authority Board meeting is adjourned.
All right.
By the way.